All right, guys. Hello, hello. Happy Monday to you guys. We are here to talk a little bit more about protists. You got part one on Friday. You guys talked about several different types of protists. We talked about paramecium and a euglena. And today we're going to talk a little bit about several more examples. What's cool is tomorrow you guys are actually going to see some of these things under the microscope, okay? But anyway, let's get rolling with some of this stuff, okay? All right, so where we left off was with the euglena, okay? But before we hop to the euglena, you guys should see where it says plant-like protists, okay? On Friday, we talked about animal-like protists, which we talked about the paramecium and the amoeba. And please note, guys, that there are way, way, way more animal-like protists just than those two. That sounded kind of strange. But those are the two that, obviously you need to learn about, okay? For plant-like protists, what we refer to them as is we call them phytoplankton. Phyto means light, all right? So these are guys that are going to be plant-like, meaning that they're going to be undergoing photosynthesis, okay? All right, so the first one that we have here is euglena. If you guys could put a little star beside euglena, so you should have a star beside paramecium, amoeba, and the euglena, all right? Now note here, they are green, okay? Your plant-like guys, anytime you see anything green under a microscope, more than likely that is a phytoplankton because it undergoes photosynthesis, okay? These guys are autotrophs. All right, so under information for the euglena, why don't you guys simply put down that they are unicellular, okay, which means that that is one single cell. What you see right here is one single cell with all these components in there basically doing what it needs to do. So for example, an eye spot, which we're going to talk about, these are the chloroplast, the nucleus, very simple guys, okay. Also under information, why don't you guys put down that they move using a flagella, okay? A flagella is a long whip-like tail, and you guys learned that back in your bacteria unit and also when we talked about prokaryotic cells in the fall. So just simply put down under information, move using a flagella. You know that it's a whip-like tail, and if you forgot that, I guess you can write that down. Okay, the second part, don't worry about writing that down. Basically, what's really cool about euglena is that they're really, really, really small, okay? And then there's lots of different species of them that can move in different ways. All right, so the euglena that you guys are going to see tomorrow are definitely not going to be this big. As a matter of fact, when you put one little small drop of water on a microscope slide, you're going to see quadrillions of them, okay, all over the place moving around, itty bitty, all right? But some of the cool ways that they can move is that they can spin like a tornado, all right? And again, look how many are there. So what do I mean by spinning like a tornado? Let's go to this video right here. And these are going to be kind of like what you guys are going to see tomorrow. If you guys notice, you can't even see the flagella. It's so fine. But that little point that you see basically coming down, that's where the flagella is. And actually, you won't see the euglena this big on tomorrow. All right? So that is one of them. Okay? They can move like a blob, which I believe is what I say next here. Okay? They can move like a worm, not a blob. All right, again, notice the general shape here. All right, so what do I mean like a worm is going to be this guy. You won't see any that'll do this. All right, but I remember when I first saw this, it really kind of tripped me up because I was like, that looks like a euglena, but it's moving a little weird. Okay, and actually, if you look at this guy, he actually has two flagella. Okay, but that is one single cell there. It looks kind of creepy, doesn't it? All right, so that is your euglena. All right. Okay, under method of feeding, these guys are pretty unique, okay? Under method of feeding, why don't you guys put down autotroph because you know that they are phytoplankton, which means that they're plant-like. But I also want you guys to put down heterotrophs. These guys get the best of both worlds, which makes me very jealous of them. All right, so let's talk about the autotroph part first. If you guys notice in all these pictures here, okay, if you notice right here, you kind of see a red spot there, kind of see a red spot. Okay, here you see the eye spot. What we refer to it as is that we call it an eye spot. And basically what this is that it's literally like a light sensor, okay? So if you guys were to close your eyes and look towards the window and wave your hand in front of your face, you can actually see the shadow of your hand moving back and forth. That's kind of like what the eye spot is. It's not a functional eye, but basically it lets the euglena know where there is sunlight so they can move towards it and undergo photosynthesis. But what's even cooler about these guys is that if they can't get to light or if they see something tasty swim by, and again, I'm making a very general a generalization here, they can actually consume as well. So not only are they producers, meaning that they undergo photosynthesis, but they're also consumers, which is really, really, really cool. All right. So that would be like us. We're consumers. We're heterotrophs, but you can go outside and anytime the sun hits you, you can make food that way as well. Pretty cool. All right. So they're very unique in that sense. I don't know of any other critter that does that. Okay. All right. How do they reproduce? If you guys could, under reproduction, put down binary fission and asexual. That's basically, again, where they make copies of themselves. All right. And it's identical. So if you guys notice, we started here with this guy. Basically, he copied the genetic material. Then it splits. What's going on here? It should split into two. I don't know what's happening in this picture. I don't have a very good picture here. Maybe it started here. Who knows? But basically, if this guy were to split in half right here, that would be two of those euglena. Okay, sorry about that picture. I just noticed that. All right. So that's it for the euglena. Okay. All right, the next few that I'm going to talk about are not necessarily ones that you're going to put a star beside, but it's ones that I think are pretty cool groups and just I don't know why you don't need to know these. Okay, so the first one is going to be dinoflagellates. The reason why I like this one is because I'd say about 10 years ago I almost got out of teaching, and what I was going to do is move to Charleston and spend time researching dinoflagellates, and obviously I ended up not doing that. But they're really wicked cool guys. Not only are they beautiful, look at them, they kind of look like crystals, like this guy, but they do some pretty cool things as well. Under information, why don't you guys just simply put down that they're unicellular, so that is one single cell. Some of them can actually have flagella. You don't need to write that down. This guy moves crazy. He actually has 3 flagella, one here, one over there, and one down here. So when he moves, he's like a great big huge mess. Okay, they're really cool. All right. Now, part of the reason I'm bringing up these dinoflagellates is just basically under information. Why don't you guys put this down? Is that they some of them have the ability to glow. Why this is so cool is here's your little dinoflagellate right here, and when they feel like somebody's about to do them harm, or if they're trying to scare somebody off, what they actually do is they glow to shove them away or scare them away. What's funny is if you guys think back to your Darwin era, and actually we talked about this in classification as well, the exploration era where all these guys were going on these ships and discovering all these new areas, they would hit some areas of the ocean that would literally glow around their ship, and it freaked them out. They thought that it was like the gods telling them that they shouldn't go or whatever. And imagine not knowing that these things existed and being in the water and it actually glow around you. I think I would think crazy things were happening. But now that we know about them and we figured out what they do, we can kind of manipulate them and play with them a little bit. Okay, so I have 2 pretty cool video clips to show you. This is the first one. To kind of show you what's going on here, these are kids hanging out on a pier, I guess. And they take a log and they throw it into the water, and the splash that you actually see is glowing. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see what's happening. I'm going to turn the volume up. They get excited and say a bad word, so I'll turn it down at that point too, okay? All right.
Science experiment. Take 1. Actually point it at the water.
They're going to throw a brick in. Okay, pretty cool. Let's do it in slow motion.
Oh,
whoa!
that was the single greatest thing.
Isn't that awesome? So cool. It is so cool. All right, so that's one of them. Also, what you can have is check out this guy surfing. And that's all these millions of dinoflagellates glowing around him. Isn't that cool? Beautiful. So pretty. So my husband, as you guys know, is a scuba diver. Not a scuba diver. He's a scuba diver. Sorry, I was thinking it was snorkeling. My bad. He said that on some of his dives, he would do night dives, that he would actually be able to see this. So he's experienced this here in North Carolina. And here in the summertime, if it's been particularly hot and we happen to have a lot of these things around there, you could actually do like this lady where you lay down and move your arms up and down and it would glow around you. It's totally on my bucket list to do, but pretty cool stuff. All right. So those are your dinoflagellates. Okay. Second one, let's talk a little bit about diatoms. Diatoms are really cool because they're weird, all right? So under diatoms, let's simply put down under the information that they are unicellular. We're not really writing down a whole lot about these guys, okay? They're going to be unicellular. And if you guys check them out, they look really strange. Believe it or not, these are living creatures, okay? And they actually look like crystals or glass of some sort, okay? Again, if you take a look at this really pretty picture right here, all of these are living organisms that actually undergo photosynthesis. Really pretty, beautiful under a microscope. Okay. What's cool about this is, and you don't have to write any of this down, just put down that they're unicellular, and that makes me a happy lady, is that because they're plants or plant-like, they're going to have a cell wall. They're definitely not plants. Sorry, it's a protist. In their cell wall, they're going to have a silica substance, which is actually glass-like. And whenever they die, their shells or those glass substances actually fall to the ocean floor and look like this, which looks really crazy. It's called diatomaceous earth. All right. And what we can do here is that we actually mine that. Now, this huge area right here, that is all a collection of this, the diatomaceous earth. Now, guys, these are microscopic, okay? If you take a look at this, you can see this, right? So those are bajillions of diatoms that basically have collected over time. So all of this used to be covered by water. The water receded, and this is what's left over. If you were to touch it, it actually would kind of look like a powder. And what we do with this is some uses that I've heard of is that they put it in like a cleaning powder that you might put in your sink to scrub your sink. I've heard of them putting in toothpaste, okay, to have some of like a glass-like substance that wouldn't hurt us to get the grime off of our teeth. And I've also heard them putting them in tar anytime they pave roads to make them sparkle. All right, really cool. So anytime you're in the ocean, you're swimming around these things, okay? And to kind of get an idea of what they look like alive, they don't really do anything exciting. So if you take a look at this, this is a living diatom, and it's just like, I'm a diatom, look at me, and everything else is swimming around it. And these guys don't really move that much. They're just like, I'm a diatom. That one's moving. Okay, look at me. I'm a diatom. All right, they're not, nothing really fancy happens with them. Okay, here's another one right there. They're so freaking cool, man. Okay, pretty neat. So all these are going to be your diatoms. Okay, neat, neat, neat. All right, so next we got green algae. Okay, so for green algae, under information, why don't you guys put down that these guys can be unicellular? The majority of them are unicellular. Okay, there can actually be a few that are multicellular, not that many, and a lot of them are actually called colonial. All right. And colonial basically sounds like hopefully a colony. That makes you guys think of that in history when you learned about colonies. It's basically where a group of people live in a small area with each other. Okay. This is an example of a colonial green algae. We call it Volvox. What's cool here is that all of these little green circles that you see in here are individual organisms that all live together in this one critter. Volvoxes are gorgeous, and if you're lucky, we might have had contamination, especially with the Euglena specimen that you're going to be looking at tomorrow. Sometimes they mix things up. You might actually see one of these guys, which would be really cool, okay? And that actually kind of looks like one of your diatoms, but it is another green algae. This right here is another example of a colonial one. We call that Spirogyra, which is really kind of fun too, okay? All right, now under information, probably the biggest thing about green algae is that this is the most diverse group of protists. We have more green algae than anything. If you guys take a look at my turtle tank, all that green stuff is bajillions of different types of green algae. There's green algae everywhere, and actually it can be found everywhere. And here you can see a lot of the different samples of it. Some of it kind of looks like a plant. Some of them actually have flagellas. They can move around. Really pretty cool. What's cool is that we can actually find it on the back of some animals. A lot of people think that this is mold on the back of a sloth, but that's actually green algae hanging out there. It's a symbiotic relationship, or mutualism, I guess I should say, where it kind of gives them a little bit of camouflage. Poor sloths, they don't really move very fast, but also it gives a cool little place for these the green algae to hang out. Really cool. Okay. All right, very last one that I want to talk about is one called brown algae. All right, now part of the reason I want to talk about brown algae is because these are going to be the ancestors to plants, okay? So if you guys could, under information, you can just put this right here because these guys are actually mistaken oftentimes for plants, okay? These are going to be like your seaweeds and your kelps, and I'll show you what some of these things look like here in a second. The reason why they're not plants, even though they look like a plant, is because they don't have true root, stems, and leaves, okay, like a plant has. And you know what a root, a stem, and a leaf is. You learned that in fourth grade, Okay, what they have instead of a root is they have something called a holdfast, which is literally kind of like a suction cup that keeps them into place. Instead of a stem, they have a stipe. A stipe really does nothing. It just kind of keeps it upright, kind of like the transition zone between these leaf structures, which aren't really leaves. We call them fronds. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. They're really cool. They have these gas bladders in there that help keep them afloat. All right. So they can undergo photosynthesis. Usually, you won't find them in ridiculously deep water, but you have some that have adapted to live in deep waters. Okay. So seaweed is an example of this, all right? And actually, under information, if you guys could put down seaweed, that would be awesome. And I think you guys all know what seaweed is, all right? There's been many times when I've been in the ocean and thought that something fish was getting me and I was getting attacked by seaweed. I don't know if anybody else has done that before, okay? The other example is kelp, okay? And kelp is really freaking cool. We can have things known as kelp forests, all right, which are huge, huge, huge areas. And actually, I have a pretty short video here to show you about kelp forests, okay? Just because it's cool.
Kelp forests can be seen along much of the west coast of North America. Kelp are actually large brown algae that live in cool, relatively shallow waters close to the shore. They grow in dense groupings, much like a forest on land. These underwater towers of kelp provide food and shelter for thousands of fish, invertebrate, and marine mammal species. Kelp are very simple organisms that consist of a holdfast, a stipe, and blades. At the bottom is a root-like structure called a holdfast that anchors kelp to rocks and other materials on the ocean floor. Young kelp must compete for space to settle and grow, as the rocky bottom is carpeted with smaller algae and invertebrates like anemones and sponges. The stipe is similar to a plant's stem. It is strong, yet flexible, allowing kelp to sway in the currents of the ocean. Many fish use this middle area of the kelp forest as hunting grounds. The blades contain a special gas which act like a float, keeping the kelp blades close to the surface of the water where they absorb energy from the sun. This ability to float raises the kelp to the sea surface, forming a dense canopy.
Okay, I'm actually going to stop right there. All right, really cool. Kelp forests I hear are amazing. They're mainly going to be out in California, and that's kind of on my well, it is on my bucket list to go out and see at some point in time. I would love to spend some time snorkeling around there, even though the water is a little bit chillier. Okay, all right. So we have seaweed, we have kelp, and the other cool thing about this, you guys, is that it's actually edible. All right. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these before. I don't know if you've ever heard of Trader Joe's, but Trader Joe's actually sells seaweed chips. And my husband and I bought these once, and they actually taste like fish parts, or not that I've had fish parts, but it smells like dead fish. It didn't taste very good either, but some people like it. Okay. And if you go to certain areas, like in China or Japan, mainly Japan, you can find like seaweed Pringles, which is hilarious. Seaweed salad. I don't know if anybody's ever had this before. You can actually get this at Harris Teeter over the sushi section. It looks super scary, but I would love for you guys to get some of it and try it. It is absolutely amazing. It kind of tastes like it's pickled a little bit, and it has really good flavors in there. Interesting texture. It is amazing. Don't knock it till you try it. Okay. And of course, sushi. All right. If I have any sushi fans, the stuff that's around there, that's actually seaweed. Okay. And so you're eating it. So next time you have sushi with your parents, or if you're on a date, you can say, hey, you know this stuff right here? It's a protist. Let me tell you a little bit about a protist. And, if somebody did that with me, I would think they were super cool. So, that's just me. Who knows? Give it a shot and get back to me on that one. All right. All right, guys. So, that's that. Okay. What you guys are going to work on next is you are actually going to do a virtual pond dip. Okay. The reason why I like doing this is because this is showing you kind of more of the different organisms that you're not biology. What am I doing? You'll see some of the organisms that are more common in ponds that you might not see with me tomorrow, okay? So let me go ahead and click that sheet and let's go to that sheet, okay? So here's the actual, you have this diagram on the sheet of paper that Miss Hartsock's going to give you here in a second, okay? So you have that diagram, and basically you're going to click on all these organisms, okay? If you guys flip it to the back, kids see this and they freak out. They're like, oh my God, that looks crazy, okay? Don't freak out, all right? So let's click on an organism, okay? So on this site right here, I'm going to click on this little guy right here. What I like about this is that it's also showing you kind of the relative sizes of all these guys, okay? So if you just put your finger, the little finger on it, if you notice, it already tells you what it is. It says that it's a euglena. So find euglena on the back of your sheet there, okay? Everybody find euglena. Where's euglena? Right down here, okay? All right, so it asks you, where is it found in the pond water? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that euglena, okay? I'll trust that. What did I just do? Probably put something weird on my computer. Later. Okay, so where does it tell you? It says right, oh, stop it. Okay, it tells you that it's planktonic, okay? A lot of you guys are like, what is that? Planktonic basically means that it's hanging out on the upper surface of the water, okay? So on that sheet, you guys can just put down the surface of water. Think about it. They got to undergo photosynthesis, so they want to be up towards the top where they can absorb that sunlight energy. Like, think about the brown algae. That's why they had those air bladders, okay? It often is going to color the water green. When you guys take samples of the euglena, you'll notice that that water is green, and that's because of the 80 quadrillion euglena that are actually in there, which is pretty neat. And I know I say that about everything. All right, it's asking you if it's unicellular or multicellular. If you keep reading, or right over here, it says that it's single cell, so that means unicellular. So right there, you would simply write down uni, okay? All right, last one, it says distinguishing characteristic, okay? So what I want you guys to do is just take a look at this and tell me what you think it looks like in your own opinion, okay? To me, I think it looks like a green bean, okay, with some strings on it, like a string bean almost, okay? And that's my own personal opinion, all right? Now, some people might think that it looks like blah, 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 all right? What I want you to do is write down what you think, okay? Don't copy somebody on that one, all right? You might actually see some contamination in the samples that you're looking at tomorrow, and it is quite possible that you might get a little bit of all of these, okay? Very possible. You'll definitely see this, and you'll definitely see the paramecium, but I've seen some of these other guys in there as well, okay? Sound good? All right, now the last thing that I want to do is, if you guys flip it back to the front, do you see where you clicked on that one? Let's draw an arrow out from this guy, and let's label it euglena. Okay, let's label that as your euglena. All right, so I want you to label all of these guys here as well. Okay? All right, so whatever you don't finish here, this is actually going to be your homework. Okay? If you don't have internet at home, you can finish it in +1. You guys are also going to finish that Protist study guide that you guys started on Friday. Okay? All right, guys. I don't know when I'm going to make my next video. It might be either Wednesday or Friday. I got to figure out if you guys can do those notes on your own. But fungus are so cool, I might not be able to resist not teaching you about them because I love them. Okay. All right. Hope you guys had a great weekend, and I miss you, and I will talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.